Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to Versus Stars podcast, third season. All my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. And remember, click the subscribe button, everybody. This is an amazing episode because Jason Loo boards the mothership. You know him as the writer of the Sentry from Marvel Comics. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Mr. Lowe. Thank you so much for coming to Versus Stars podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
It's totally my pleasure. I'm really enjoying reading Sentry, so we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but thank you so much for coming on. And we start off with the first question of inspiration. So, inspire your love of comics and who your earliest influences.
Um, my love of comics goes way back to when I was like 4 or 5. Going to my local convenience store and going to the spinner racks.
Ooh.
Seeing like the Archie comics, the Batman, the GI Joe. I gravitated more towards GI Joe since that was something that like I was a big fan of the action figures at the time. And yeah, it just went from there. But also Batman, what was the Adam West Batman was syndicated on TV in my childhood, which was like early mid 80s. So yeah, that kind of brought me into my love of superheroes. My early influences, the early comic work I did, which was like just stuff I did like back in high school. Went to my local Staples, which was like Business Depot and just Xerox comics. I was reading James Robinson's Starman at the time.
Mm.
Uh, Lots of that. Generation X, back in high school. And for some reason, all the Superman comics, like I like there was a year where I bought every title to just to read the continued adventures of Superman. Um, and then in college, like I kind of like phased out of the superhero stuff and leaned more into alternative comics stuff by Adrian Tomine, like Shortcomings and his Optic Nerve anthologies, and Daniel Klaus. Who else? Pretty much like just random stuff. Like I would pick up, published by Drawn and Quarterly, because I was like, wow, like comics is more than just superheroes, and more than just superheroes in action, and it's also about just mundane, normal stuff, and just slice of life stuff, and it was just interesting to see those kind of moments being captured in the panels and just copy or be inspired by that in my later work.
I really just like that you had about comics off the spinner rack, which I miss the spinner rack so much. It'd be nice if they came back into style.
Not great for collectors though, but they are
No.
fun to peruse through.
I mean, I think we're missing something with that impulse buy of that spinner rack, where right there you can see a couple of issues that you haven't seen in a while. I don't know. To me, always thought they were the coolest things.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And but like I think I was even like mindful like when I was like 10 years old. I was like, oh, like this Superman comic has too many creases from the spinner rack.
Yeah, that part.
So yeah, I had to like be like very picky about the copies I would pick.
That part's true too. You get the thumb. It's
Yeah.
the thumb indent. But you get that sometimes too at the comic book stores where you can tell someone impolite was unfortunately mishandling the comic books. That always ruined everything.
Yeah. That's
So,
why I go to the comic book stores that would already have them like poly bagged and boarded.
oh well, yeah, well that's also why you get a pull list, right?
Yes.
So it's pretty cool to go from being, obviously being a comic fan to being a comic book writer. Now, at what point did you realize that was a possible thing?
Being a comic book writer, artist and writer, like you can do that independently. Like it's just it's that can be attainable as long as you have the passion for that, and that's something that I've been doing for like more like for maybe almost 2 decades, more than 2 decades before I got into Marvel. So I mean, yeah, like I was doing that back in high school and through college. Um, it, I think anyone can like that has a passion to tell stories can do it. Um, and yeah, like when you keep on doing it, and then like eventually honing your skills, perfecting it, and then making enough noise on social media, eventually the publishers will take notice of you, um, and then give you those opportunities to work that's they'll get they'll gain even more attention.
Well, I think the cool thing too that we're talking about how much you loved buying Superman back in the day because you're now the writer for Marvel's. I guess he's not. I guess he's technically Marvel's equivalent to Superman. I mean, technically, it could be Hyperion, could be a couple of others, but for the most part, it's probably the Sentry, right? So, how did you get involved with the Sentry? What was your first exposure to the character? Like, did you know who he was and the background when you got the gig? How did that all work out?
Yeah. I actually like yeah. My series focus on a bunch of new centuries,
Right.
not just the century. Actually, I the funny thing is like I was aware when Century was first introduced around a time when I was like phasing out of the superhero phase, and my high school friend, like who was still like he still had his finger on the pulse of comic of the superhero news, and he told me about Century, and I was like, oh, okay, so Marvel has his own Century, and this is uh like a forgotten superhero that kind of got like retroactively um he retroactively exists in the Marvel universe now. Um and like so I was kind of like just casually um like following him through the adventures of like the big Marvel events like Secret Invasion, Civil War, what else? Oh, Road War, Hulk, like all of those, and like knowing that he's this um very unhinged superhero with extremely enormous powers. He's the guy with the powers of a million exploding suns. Um, so like yeah, like I casually followed him, but then when Alana Smith, the editor, she reached out to me and proposed the idea of um, introducing a bunch of characters that would have his powers, and one of them could be this legacy character for the century. I was like, wow, this is a great opportunity for me to kind of put like a fingerprint in the Marvel universe by creating a new character. But I would also have to like just study what Century has been up to in the past 3 years at least. You know, going back reading Jeff Lemire's run of the Century, um, as well as King in Black and um, some of the Thor comics where he's left off, and especially Strange. Um, before I would continue on with um, and telling what would happen next with the Century Mantle, and considering that my series is um, like I'm writing it like a crime mystery where we're following Jessica Jones and Misty Knight. Like I had to do some more background work on what they've been up to as well, and try to get their voices down, um, and and also um, binge watching Law and Order. Well, I've been a big fan of Law and Order and like all these crime dramas to just fit that in this series. So all that research went into the new Sentry.
The fun aspects of being a comic book writer, right? You get to yeah, what do you do for work? I'm watching Law and Order. I'm busy right now. Let me work. Well, the thing about Sentry, I mean, also like so as you mentioned, you wrote your story is after the death of the Sentry, where his powers have been dispersed over multiple different characters. But when we're looking at the Sentry himself, he's had kind of a tenuous history within the Marvel fan base, right? Some people love him. I actually was a big Sentry fan. Some people really don't like him. And he's kind of like, and depending on the story, he's either been this very fascinating deep dive character, or he's been kind of like this like tool of Norman Osborn kind of character. So when,
Mhm.
when you're thinking about the Sentry, what when does the character work? I know you like to you're doing something a little bit different with him, but when you're thinking about him, the character itself, because that's kind of coming from, when does he work as a character, and why do you think sometimes he hasn't been maybe as big as Marvel may wanted him to have been when they first launched him? And I think Paul Jenkins launched them.
um no, that's an interesting question. I mean, and the thing is, it's like I just did enough research on Bob Reynolds to just get a grasp of the legacy that he's carried, um, and try to see how ordinary people in the 616 universe would like see what their viewpoints are of this character that has created so many massive mishaps around the world, and some of them, and but also has been a positive light in universe as well. So like through these individuals that I create in the series, um, you see different viewpoints of the Sentry. Um, Now, yeah, like it's interesting what when I because the thing is, like, I'm focusing on the continued legacy through these new characters. It's more of a side quest of what the continuation of the Sentry is uh going through. Like, I don't want to like spoil things, but I mean, he only passed away like maybe a year ago in King of Black.
Hmm.
And the thing is, it's like you don't want to like right away like just bring a character back, like, um but and especially with some of the work that like other writers have done to like with his afterlife. Corinne Gronbeck, like, she kind of established that like he's at peace right now in Valhalla. And it's like, like, I think we should respect a character who's found this moment of serenity and not pull him back into action yet. Um, but in the meantime, like, let's see what these other characters are doing with his mantle. Um, that was my main focus on the series.
Why do you think he does sometimes have that problematic history within the Marvel universe? Like what was done right with him? What do you think kind of veered off a little bit too much?
Yeah, so yeah, Bob Reynolds is a character that also experiences his own personal struggles,
Hmm.
um, especially with his own mental health. Um, and you know, someone that has that kind of struggle while being given these godly powers, uh, things will definitely not go the way he would want them to go. And considering that I am introducing these brand new characters, I'm going with the same spirit of that, where they also have their own personal struggles, and but are also bestowed these amazing powers, and they and yeah, like things will never be perfect for sure. Fans that appreciate, I mean, yeah, fans that love the Sentry, I guess they would very much understand his struggles, and that's what I'm trying to do with these new characters, like make them like understand what they have gone through with, but before being bestowed these powers, and then just go along with the ride.
Well, one thing that you have Missy Knight say in the first issue is Missy Knight says about the Sentry, he caused as many problems as he solved. Now, is it better for the 616 that he's dead? I mean, is the world better off, or do you think the Sentry had a better purpose in that, or that just Missy Knight's viewpoint that maybe he's more of a hassle than he was a help?
So I mean, I'm not going to say that Misty Knight shares my opinions of the Sentry. This is Misty Knight has her own experiences of the Sentry, especially with what went on with her and Sentry in Jeff Lemire's series, where she kind of plays his babysitter through I the ICDB. No, sorry, ICD, the Appearance Crime Division. And when for someone like Misty, who is human just like us, but with a bionic arm, but she's assigned to watch over a character with these incredible powers. Like I would be full of anxiety and stress, not knowing what would happen next. Like anything can blow up when you're watching a character like him. He's someone that like the Avengers would always have to keep their eye on constantly while like watching other crises around the world. So like I think it's good at the moment for like the 616 to kind of have a break any type of accidents that might occur from Bob Reynolds, but at the same time you have you have these random strangers that have his powers, and I mean now more catastrophes are happening. But yeah, I mean it's all kind of self-contained within the series. Misty Knight's trying to get a handle of it. And she's even called the help of the Avengers, and you'll find some other surprise guests in this series to try to contain these. I was going to say happy accidents, but these these accidents from occurring in the Marvel universe.
Well, it's also pretty cool that one of the points of view in the story that's kind of or at least the audience's point of perspective is Jessica Jones. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so she's kind of compared to Bob Reynolds, she's very much a street level hero. So why is her perspective an important perspective for this series and for our understanding of the Sentry?
I thought it would be interesting to have like a street level approach to this series, so that way the readers can kind of follow along like as pedestrians in a series, um, to see yeah, just to follow along with this superhero, this superhuman adventure mystery story. And also I thought, wouldn't this be interesting to Jessica Jones is definitely a great vehicle to use in telling a good mystery story in a pedestrian level. Um, and especially having her in the mix with Misty Knight, where they've haven't seen eye to eye in the Jessica Jones series. That was written by Brian Michael Bendis. Like it would be kind of nice to like kind of continue on with that, but be like, okay, well, you guys have like this serious matter in hand. Like you guys have to work together somehow.
Hmm.
Miss Jessica Jones will be the muscle, and while at the same time, like use both of their heads to solve these mysteries and try to get to root of what's been happening with these random strangers getting these powers and try to contain that with the best of their resources. Um, but also, yeah, Missy Knight's just a very fun character. Like she's a character that has had a background as an adventurer as well, and she's a person with superpowers, but has kept a low profile with that. Um, so like she's a character that understands both sides of being a civilian and or no, well, not being a civilian, but being a street level character, but also uh, knowing what it's like um, as a superhero level character.
Well, I think it's pretty cool too that one of the characters who does have some of this power is the character Mallory Gibbs.
Yes.
She's a wheelchair-bound individual, but she gets his powers, including flight. Now, when we're thinking about the Sentry and how this powers has dispersed, I mean, Sentry himself had many different powers, sort of like Superman, many different powers.
Mhm.
Are the powers connected to the individual? What they're getting is how they're translating the power directed towards the individual. Is it just random fate that this is happening the way it happens? So, kind of break this down a little bit for us.
All these individuals unique power sets that were evenly dispersed from that one century. Um, but and the thing is, like, this is all random too. Like they had no choice. They never were never asked for these powers. They hmm. I think I'm telling too much because only issue number one came out, and the thing is, I am trying to tell a mystery where you will have to find out for yourself in issues two, three, and four of how they get their powers. So I don't want to give too much away. But yeah, from what you see, like from what you see in issue number one, like Farhad, he has got the super speed from the century, um, and and as you see from Mallory, she's got the flight and as well as the the power blasts of exploding suns. Um, and Ryan, who's got flight. Um, Mallory's also got flight as well. Um, and part of like some of them might like their powers kind of overlap because like it's not like 100% of his powers. Like some of them will probably have a percentage, and I'm not going to do the math here, but like I'm not going to put a pie chart of exactly how much of um uh, how much of the powers that they got from Bob Reynolds.
Well, as you mentioned, like Ryan Topper, right? I mean, Ryan Topper, as far as I can tell, is right now the primary antagonist of the series. Um, Now, for Ryan Topper, he says the powers of the Sentry are dangerous in the wrong hands, which at the moment he definitely feels like he's the wrong hands. But why does he think he's the right hands to have this incredible power?
He thinks mainly because he is a person that is very familiar with the superhero world. Like he's somewhat he's a fanboy. He's someone that has followed the adventures of these superheroes through the news headlines and the news stories. Um, and yeah, he's studied these characters, and so like he's a person that has his dreams have come true. That like he's finally like he's someone that always wanted to be a superhero, and now he's got the powers of one of his favorite superheroes. But at the same time, like does he deserve these powers? I mean, he believes he does because he's very familiar with the legacy of this character. He's followed someone like the Sentry, um, who has done all these questionable things. I think Ryan, in his own way, kind of like finds reasons um, for Robert Reynolds' convictions, like tries to justify them in his own way, and sees the greater good.
But if he okay, so he's kind of doing like this Highlander thing, where it's like can only be one, and he's killing it and getting their powers, but by doing at least that's what it seems like in the first issue.
Hmm.
Now, if he let's say he wins, right, and gets all the powers, he becomes sort of like the new Sentry. Is his plan to become like a superhero? Like, is he going to be a super conqueror? Like, how does he envision himself if he actually were to get those powers, all the powers?
Ooh, like these are things that I have to say, like you got to like pick up the next issue to find out because I don't want to give it away.
What
Uh,
about this question? Because you can't possibly give me away any spoilers with this question.
okay.
We talk about the okay. So one of the issues with Sentry is that when he ever uses enough of his power, he becomes the Void. Now,
Uh-huh.
where is the Void in all this? Now, is the Void the powers, or is the Void in Bob Reynolds? Or I mean, let's say like, is the Void a result of that kind of power, or was it always a split personality of Bob? And one way or another, where's the Void fit in what's happening right now?
Hmm. That's I don't know if I want to give that answer either. And it's something that like me and my editors have discussed about the Void's involvement. Um. Uh. And the thing is, like, like, yeah, I've had lots of people ask about, like, okay, because I'm telling a Sentry story, are we gonna see the Void? Like, um, and I, I'm just gonna answer with, I mean, like, I did mention that this is sort of like a side quest of the continuation of the Sentry mantle. I guess I want to try to subvert some expectations of the Sentry. Just because there is a Sentry story, like, will we see the Void? I don't know. I don't want to pull the curtain because we've already like, yeah, it's only issue number one, and that was something that I kind of thought about in like early on in writing this series, but with talking with the editors, like I'll just say just follow the series, and you'll find out for yourself about what if the Void will show up.
Oh, what can you answer? Is the Void, in your opinion, the man, or is the Void part of the powers?
I think the Void is a separate entity that is tied with uh the man and the powers. Um, and I'll just leave it at that. Like
So,
we can still tell a Sentry story. Hmm. Before we get into the Void.
so once again looking at your series, anytime you're dealing with the level of the Sentry's powers and the possibility of any individual or more than one individuals having some aspects of those powers, you're dealing with some major themes and a major player in the 616. Have there been discussions of how this series is going to impact the 616?
Um. Well, yeah, definitely. Like you will see some because of the amount of damage that's happening in this series. Like I'm writing this like as if this is like its own event in the 616. So you will have the Avengers being involved, and you will have I don't know if I want to, well, yeah, it's already mentioned in the solicits. Uh Doctor Strange and Clea will also make an appearance as well to shed some light on what's been going on with these individuals. Um, and but at the same time, like we, you know, when we were introducing these brand new characters, like we gotta tell their own arcs, and kind of have to like solve their own problems themselves, without being muddled um with the continuity of another character to muddle things. Like I feel that um some of these characters have to like take ownership of themselves, without the resolution of like, well, yeah, we can resolve this issue with some of these like other characters, and then the problem's fixed. You want I just want to like just tell like an authentic original story, but with the continuity of what's already been established. Oh, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. So what kind of things can we look forward to? And is this is what is it, a 6 issue series?
4 issues.
4 issue series. So what can we look forward to in the next few issues?
Definitely the guest stars that I mentioned. You'll find
Yeah.
the Adventures. You'll find Doctor Strange and Clea. A lot of catastrophes. Yeah, a lot of tons of catastrophes. More to happen in the Marvel 616 universe.
Well, like I said, I really enjoyed the first issue, and I'm like I said, as a Sentry fan, looking forward to what happens in the next 4 issues. So, Mr. Lowe, thank you so much for coming on my show. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I wish I could give you the better answers, but at the same time, like I don't want to reveal too much. And yeah, just continue on following the series as more revelations will be revealed.
Oh, we'll have to do a recap episode when the series is over.
There we go. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on, sir. Have a fantastic day.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Dispersed Stars podcast. Please help me battle those algorithms by liking and subscribing. Be sure to return for the next episode when we are visited by Chris Grant.